we talked about last episode.
Hello.
Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
He's gone. We've lost him.
Dad, any experience on either of these?
Nope. I like the bright colors in Splatoon. I'd probably play that.
So is this possibly like a no heartbreak scenario for Kumino? Like for the first time in the tournament?
Yeah, no heartbreak here. I'm happy either way.
All right. Well,
I'm not.
Hello, welcome to this would be what, the third episode of the 2024 Showboys March Madness Console Wars. I said console, very weird there. I apologize for that. Console Wars. This week we'll be diving into the Nintendo region with a familiar face around these parts, Jared from Play Along Podcast. How you doing, my dude?
Hey guys, I am so excited. Thanks for having me on to be the official Nintendo rep here. The honor is truly mine.
Yeah. Funny story. So we've been airing reruns of like our massive. So I was on Anchor the other day uploading an episode. So for those of you on YouTube, if you didn't know, we do upload our episodes like audio only versions over on Anchor, and it goes out to all the audio platforms. Anyways, I was uploading an episode there, and we have like over 300 episodes of this podcast.
That's insane.
And we've been airing reruns of all the video versions on our Twitch channel. It's been running essentially for like a week straight. And we haven't repeated any episodes yet, which is kind of crazy. But the whole story, earlier today, the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet hype episode was on.
Yeah, dude, it was so weird. I got a notification of someone else that I watch on Twitch was live, and I was like, oh cool, I'll jump on Twitch. I opened Twitch and I saw like my face and like my friend's thing, and I was like, what the? And I clicked on it. I was like, oh yeah, Mike's they're doing the reruns, and it was the episode that I was on about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet hype. But it was just like surreal seeing like my head on the Twitch page. I was like, what?
Yes, and then that just made me think of this. Yes,
the good old cloth, the cloth.
Yes, made.
We were so like mid recording it was created. I jumped in, I listened to a little bit of our conversations. We were very optimistic.
Yeah, we were very
hopeful in that.
And
yeah, we were
basically Scarlet and Violet just kicked me in the nuts.
Yeah, little did we know that it would immediately just be a hot mess.
Yes. But anyways, before we get into the episode, we got to shout out our top tier patrons, Tim B, Yusuf H, and of course the honorary Hall of Fame member, Joe C. Thank you guys for your continued support. All of our other patrons, you guys rule. We really appreciate it. If you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, what Patreon is, or how you can support us, you can head over to patreon.com/showboyspodcast. Check it out. You can support us financially monthly. There's different price points. They'll come with different perks and benefits. Go check it out and sign up today. With that out of the way, we got some video game matchups to get through. Returning listeners, you probably are aware of the rules, but we're going to go over them anyways because we have Jared here, and this is his first episode in the March Madness thing. So, we've kind of talked about it already, but we have 6 categories of criteria that we're running these matchups through.
Yep.
And they are as follows. 1, gameplay mechanics. So this is the overall quality, depth, and complexity of the gameplay mechanics, including the gameplay loop, controls, balance, replayability, and technical performance. Category number 2 is the story and narrative category. So this is the overall quality of the game's story, character development, and narrative structure, and how the narrative unfolds using gameplay. The third category, the aesthetics. So this is the overall quality of the visual presentation of the game, including the graphics, art style, and also including music and sound design, etc. The next category, number 4, is innovation. This is how the game pushed the boundaries or introduced new ideas or mechanics within its genre or the gaming industry as a whole. Was the game able to make a noticeable shift in the field of gaming? Number 5, we have the fun factor, self-explanatory. How enjoyable and entertaining the game is to play, taking into account, your personal preferences and the opinions of the audience. And then we have a bonus category for number 6, and that is community engagement. This is the impact made with the audience, including memorability, the size of the player base, the impact on player community, and post-launch support. So those are the categories that we're kind of running all these matchups through. We have 16 games here out of the Nintendo division. And like we did in the Xbox and PC episode, round 1, we'll be relying heavily on the poll that you listeners voted in. So first off, thank you guys so much for voting in the polls. We will go through each matchup, read the poll results, and unless you guys made some crazy egregious error, we will side with the poll to move on to round 2.
Yeah, I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. And then once we get to round 2 and through to the end of this division, Jared will be, walking himself essentially through each matchup, presenting a winner, and we'll either agree or disagree, and conversations will be had.
Let's do it.
But before we get into it, Jared, can you just let the people know, one, where you're from? Let us know a little bit about Play Along Podcast, and then second, your connection, love for Nintendo and some of these games.
You got to make sure I have my credentials right. You got to make sure that I'm going to be knowing what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Right.
I'm Jared. I host a Play Along Podcast with my 2 other co-hosts, Kai and Ben. Essentially, what we do there is we play through games in like a book club format. We each take turns choosing a game, and we all have very different likes and dislikes on games. So we cover a multitude of different genres of games on the podcast. And what we do is we break the game into sections and then come together each week to talk about the sections. And it's a great time. We do that. And then we have some side series on the show that we do as well. Get Wrecked is one that I truly love and is really near and dear to my heart, where one of us is joined by a fellow podcaster or another guest, and we swap gaming recommendations. And every episode has just been a great time. It also helps me get through my very, very long backlog that I have. So.
Yes. So where does Nintendo play into Jared's life?
Yeah, so Nintendo games were always a center of my gaming life. I mean, that's kind of where it all started. The very first games and gaming memories that I have was playing through Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. And after that, the worlds and the fun and the charm and getting my friends together to play Super Smash Brothers on 64 and Pokemon. Yeah, Pokemon obviously being a huge one because I still love Pokemon to this day. But yeah, it all started as a kid and it never stopped. Legend of Zelda, all of that. Ocarina of Time, I always hold, and probably like a lot of people, as the game that kind of like kick-started my love for gaming, because it kind of showed me, because before that, games were fun, right? It was a social thing. I played with friends. We played Mario Party, Mario Kart. But Ocarina of Time was one of those games that showed me that gaming could be like an adventure and have a story and take you through things and have characters and everything like that. And it was so good. Love Nintendo.
Nice.
Yes.
So sound like the perfect representative for
show my Nintendo
games
that
here.
I have back there. You just can't see it. It's in the back.
Yeah. And of course, I am joined by my fellow judges on the panel, Dad and Kumino. Dad, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm awake. Unlike someone else who just woke up. No, I'm doing good. Ready to talk about some Nintendo for sure.
Nice.
Hell
I
yeah.
don't know what is glowing, like, well, now it's your microphone, but like purple. It almost looks like the Nintendo Switch controller is like
it's really cool. I like
glowing onto your
when it
face.
gets the pink like right there.
It's awesome. Kumino, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm wonderful. Oh yeah.
Oh
Ready to get this thing kicked off and underway. That's right. Macho madness in this thing, yeah.
I love
it. Also, it's kind of a reunion of the Poke Boys. Just throwing that out
Hey,
there.
the squad's all here, new
Also,
and old.
There will be no bias on my part,
Okay,
even
that's
though
good.
I am wearing a Pokemon hoodie and Pokemon pajama pants.
Oh, I didn't come prepared,
Okay.
man.
This is why I'm on the judge panel and not representing this division.
Yeah,
because Pokemon
I'm the impartial
Yes.
fourth party here. Yes, a fourth party that will be
All
no
right,
biases
confirmed.
at all.
Jared
That works.
can count. That's
I
plus.
can at least
All
a
right.
4, at least a 4.
All right. Well, you guys ready to get started? Because we have a lot
Let's
of
do
matches
this.
to get through.
I'm excited, and I'm excited to see these polls, and I kind of want them to be wrong so I can like trash the people, but you know it'll be fun.
Well, I will say already, I haven't looked at the results.
Okay.
Just like I
Interesting.
haven't in any
Cool.
of the other ones. There is an even number of votes, though. So there's potential. I don't know. I haven't looked. There's always a potential that we may have a tie. Now, in the Xbox division, we had
Okay.
like what 3 ties?
Oh dang!
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not impossible.
We'll have to be decider here then.
All right. Well, let's get started. Match
Let's do it.
1. Oh man, it's
Easy.
gonna be sad for me. The number 1 seed, Zelda Breath of the Wild, going up against the number 16 seed, Triangle Strategy. So, could you walk us through these games a little, or give us a little?
Oh,
description of these
yeah.
games?
Yeah, so starting with that first seed, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. This game, action adventure game, originally came out in 2017, a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, just celebrating its 7-year anniversary, by the way, which is insane. Departure from the traditional Zelda formula, took the game in an open world direction, voice acting heavily narrative based, and this was big. This was a big one for Nintendo for sure. Triangle Strategy here on the other side, that one being developed by Square Enix, the same people that gave us the Bravely Default Octopath Traveler games, and this is a turn-based kind of strategy RPG game. Yeah.
It's so good, and I'm so sad that it's going to get absolutely decimated by
already- you
Zelda
already
right
know.
out of the water.
Yeah,
oh,
kind
so
of an
one-
unfortunate like turnaround for Triangle
Yeah.
Strategy here.
It really is. And if you're wondering how the seeding and matchups
Mhm.
came about, so Jared provided us with a massive list of Nintendo games. We went through and as you've seen with other, the other episodes, there are a lot of, franchises, right? So
Yes, so
you know,
many.
if you say Zelda, there's like 39 Zelda games. So what we
Right.
did was we found that, well, in the instances where a specific game wasn't named, we went and found the highest rated entry of the franchise and put that in the tournament. The seedings were determined by taking the average rating across like 3 different review sites. The highest seeded being number 1, all the way down to the lowest seeded being, or lowest rated being number 16 seed. And then the matchups were determined using the college basketball March Madness, tournament. I just went and figured out which seeds played what, and then that's how we made our matchups. So unfortunate draw here for Triangle Strategy, one of my favorite Switch games. The results should not be surprising.
No.
Zelda
not.
Breath of the Wild, 94.4% of the votes, with I'm sure my vote being the only one for Triangle Strategy.
Hey, Mike, you're here. You're trying to represent the homies.
I
You
tried.
tried, and that's all that matters. You gave the old college try.
And just as a swan song for Triangle Strategy, if you haven't played this game, you really should. It's an amazing turn-based tactics game. It's actually, this game and Darkest Dungeon are the games responsible that have turned me down this like 2+ year road of just playing turn-based tactics games. Triangle Strategy is a great one, and graphically, the 2D HD graphic style of Triangle
Beautiful.
and Octopath Traveler and Live Alive, like one of the most gorgeous art styles probably in gaming. But it's not Zelda, so it loses.
It's not. It's not.
True.
It's not a Zelda.
true.
So yeah.
So easy match one. Match two, we have the number 8 seed Animal Crossing New Horizons going up against the number 9 seed Astral Chain.
Okay. So Astral Chain, Astral Chain is an action adventure kind of hack and slash game. Originally came out in 2019 for the Nintendo Switch. This being developed by Platinum Games, kind of a new IP for them. You know, they usually do have done the Bayonetta franchise and things like that. Astral Chain being a new one where you kind of play these futuristic, like, demon cops that go around and try to hook up all of these creatures that have escaped into the city and everything. Really interesting, wild concept for sure. The other game, which was Animal Crossing New Horizons here, came out in 2020, the year that we try not to talk about. But this game not only was a new entry in the Animal Crossing series, 8 years in the making, by the way, but it also was a good time for everybody during that time, because it kind of gave us a nice little place to come together. Normal Animal Crossing stuff, introduced some new things like being able to terraform and interact with the environment more than the other ones, and gave us a little island where the capitalist himself, Tom Nook, has invited you over to create your own little island and everything too. So,
have you played either of these, sir?
I played a ton of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Me and my wife played it a lot when it first came out, and she kind of like, it was like we both played it, and then she just took over our island. she did most of it. I was like, that's okay, that's fine. I think there was a demo for Astral Chain. I remember playing a little bit. I haven't played a ton of it, but it does have that Platinum charm where it just feels good to kind of just rip things apart. You're kind of button mashing, you're hitting buttons here and there, you're doing combos, and it has the very big spectacle that you're known for, that Platinum Games is known for.
Dad, have you played either of these?
No.
Kumino?
Well, being that it was the year that we do not speak of when Animal Crossing came out,
That's
know
right.
I was on Animal Crossing, so
Yep.
yeah, I have a lot of love for it.
Was we talked about last episode.
Hello,
Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
He's gone. We've lost him.
Yeah, we lost him to the
Am I
darkness.
back? Am I back?
You're back. Hi. How's it going?
Sorry about that. Very awkward. Gotta love this booty cheeks Florida internet. So Stardew Valley, we talked about in the PC episode.
Yeah.
Like, the one of the more known like cozy game genre. Is Animal Crossing like the pioneer of that like cozy game?
Mm-hmm.
You're just like chilling, doing like real low key sim stuff.
Yeah, you say that until you get into it, and then all your villagers are demanding things from you. And if you don't clean up your house, you get cockroaches, and you're doing like real life chores that need time. And if you don't do them, your villagers get mad at you. So, not a lot of chill happen.
Okay. The poll results though are also not chill. 88.9% voted for Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm surprised.
Yeah. Although I feel that the people that did play Astral Chain and played through it said it is like it is a sleeper game, but unfortunately it just was one of those new IPs that didn't take off. They're kind of hoping for that, but I mean, who knows? Maybe there's still an Astral Chain 2 in the future.
Yeah.
Not today though.
Well, I mean, the home of Nintendo, it's like just franchise central.
Exactly. It's not like they don't have multiple 30 plus year franchises to fall back on just in case.
I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
The next matchup, we have the number 5 seed Xenoblade Chronicles taking on the number 12 seed Bayonetta 2.
Ooh, yes. Xenoblade Chronicles originally came out for the Nintendo Wii in 2010. I think now has since seen a port to the Nintendo Switch with all of its DLC and everything like that. This is a very large kind of open world JRPG. Good time, a lot of characters that now have solidified themselves not only in these games but outside of the games, like in Super Smash Brothers and other Nintendo media as well. Bayonetta 2 originally came out in 2014. Hey, look, there's Platinum again, a hack and slash video game from Platinum. Originally, this was a Nintendo exclusive. Originally, the first one did come out multi-plat, but at the sequel, Nintendo was able to grab onto that and hold on to it and keep this game alive. And Bayonetta 2, at least in the time of its launch, was a Nintendo exclusive. Now it's all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Kumino, you've played. Actually, he might be switching over to his PC right now. You've played Xenoblade Chronicles, yes?
You know it. I got into it because of my good friend Ellie. She used to rave about it at work, and I was like, okay, so I got to dive into it. And we worked at a auto auction dealership. And I worked the main gate, so I used to be out there alone by myself a lot. And she let me borrow her Switch, and I just fell in love with it. It's such a great game with its combat, smooth. I can't hype it up enough. Xenoblade is top tier to me.
Yeah.
So, Dad, I feel like you and I are basically going to be like, yeah, I haven't played either of those for most of the Nintendo division.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Safe to say.
Xenoblade looks sick, though. I will say that.
Like the world of like the biggest thing that drew me in with the Xenoblade games are just how massive some of these worlds are. Like this one, unfortunately, Xenoblade Chronicles X is still trapped on the Nintendo Wii, but like some of those games are just like huge, just these massive worlds that you would think wouldn't be on like a Nintendo console.
You ready for the results?
Let's do it.
61.1% for Xenoblade Chronicles.
Okay. Xenoblade taking the cake.
You okay with that?
Yep.
I'm actually shocked by it.
I am shocked by that, but I'm cool with that.
This next matchup is very intriguing to me. Maybe again, I'm not looking at the results. I'm looking at the bracket right now. But we have the number 4 seed Mario Odyssey going up against the number 13 seed Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Oh, interesting. What a duke these two have to go
a little
through.
like Mario on Mario violence about to happen.
There's some Mario hate crime that's happening right now with these two
fireballs being thrown.
Fireballs being thrown left and right. Well, these two games couldn't be. I mean, they both have Mario in them, but they're very different in their presentation and their gameplay. Super Mario Odyssey is an action platformer. Originally came out in 2017. Another launch title for the Nintendo Switch that saw Mario have a brand new power up with his new friend Cappy, giving him the ability to take form and take the shape and control of the bodies. As I'm saying that's a really kind of terrifying mechanic, being able to take control of someone's body. Like, what happens to their consciousness?
Mario's just out there possessing people.
Just out there possessing people. The questionable moral consequences to Mario taking over the body, a cool new mechanic that introduced that, and a slew of really cool worlds that came with it. Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, originally coming out in 2014 by Ubisoft. This was an interesting one because it was kind of not the first time that we had seen it, but the first time in a long time where we've seen Nintendo kind of hand out or give their main IP Mario to kind of another developer to play with. And Ubisoft took it in the direction of this kind of tactics turn-based kind of style. I remember a lot of people being really skeptical about this game going forward, mixing the Raving Rabbids and Rayman Rabbids and Mario together in this kind of turn-based tactics gameplay. But I mean, we saw a sequel to it as well too. It ended up being pretty successful.
Kingdom Battle.
Yeah. And the only reason I've played it is because of Mike, because we did a good Wrecked episode about it.
Dude, it's so good, and it's like really funny.
It's very funny. The Rabbids are always a silly fun time.
Yeah, and surprisingly for you know, I'm not like the biggest Mario fan. So going into it, the only reason I bought it, I went on, the turn-based tactics bender that I've been on for like 2 years now. And I was able to get a physical copy on Amazon for like $12, which
Oh my
is
gosh!
like
Wow.
ridiculous. So I was
Yeah.
like, I can't not buy this.
Yeah.
So I did, and then I finally played it and ended up streaming it. Shameless self plug. Go to Showboys Gaming, watch my playthrough. And I was shocked at like the depth that the turn-based tactics mechanics had. Like it was actually like a really good turn-based tactics game.
I also said that this game came out in 2014. That is not true. 2017. This was a Nintendo Switch game, not on the Wii U. But again, a wild that like Breath of the Wild, this game, Mario Odyssey, all came out within the first year launch of that Switch. So a lot of good titles.
That is nuts. That's a lot right at the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, beautiful Mario graphics, hilarious story, great game. But it's going against like an actual Mario game,
a real point Mario game.
Yeah, and any guesses on how the poll?
I mean, this is Odyssey has us, right? Like, there's no shot, doesn't it?
72.2% of the votes went to Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
So far, guys, you're just ripping my heart out tonight.
Yeah, the audience really is just it's anti-Mike.
One more match goes against my heart, I might quit. I might just literally
just podcasting in general. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore.
No, you can't quit, Mike. You can't quit. You got to stick with it. You got to remember the past two, I've had my heart ripped out.
That's true, dude. The last two episodes have not been kind to
He's had to,
no.
He's had to sleep to recover the heartache, but he's done it and he's made it, and we're good.
Yeah, that's true.
There's always
always
recover.
Hey,
have you played Mario Odyssey, Mike? Because it is a great game.
And to let you know, just about how long it takes for me to actually play the games I buy. The first time, Sparks of Hope, so that's the sequel to Kingdom Battle, it went on sale like Thanksgiving, I think. I got it for like $15. Sitting right here, still have not opened it, but it's been sitting on my desk.
I mean, I posted on Twitter about this because Steam was like, "Hey, spring sales are coming up," and I was like, "Oh, don't do this to me." And I have lots of games that I bought in the winter sale just recently, and even spring sale before that in my Steam. Have not installed them, haven't played them.
That's pretty much like 80% of my Steam library.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It's just because Valheim just sits there and just calls my name. And I have my months where I'm like, you know what? I don't need Valheim in my life. And then all of a sudden, somebody named Nick straps me down to my chair and just jams the needle.
Like, you need to get your fix. You need to get your quota for the month.
Yeah. But anyways, we're making real good time. Actually, we're halfway through round one. Holy cow.
Wow, we're flying.
I guess Nick just talks too much in the PC episode. I think that might have been the problem. Our next matchup, we have the number 6 seed Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze taking on Pikmin 3, coming in at the 11 seed.
I'm really curious about the results on this one because I have a love for one of these, and if it's not the winner, then I'm gonna fight for it.
Okay.
But a little bit about both of these games. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze originally came out in 2014 for the Nintendo Wii. This was kind of the sequel to kind of their revising of the Country franchise. Before the one on the Wii, we didn't see a Donkey Kong game for a very long time, and even since then, 2014 was the last time that we have seen a 2D or 3D Donkey Kong game in general. I guess just recently we have the Mario versus Donkey Kong, but that's a little different. It's also a remake of the game too. So it's been a while since we've seen any DK as well. Pikmin 3, this game originally came out in 2013 for the Nintendo Wii U. Now is on the Nintendo Switch as well. It sees you play as a little creature character and your fellow Pikmins gathering up supplies and trying to just make it off the little planet that you are trapped on. This also has but is part of the Switch and has since seen a sequel in Pikmin 4 as well.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Donkey Kong is the game your heart longs for.
What? How? What did you? How did you know? Yeah, tropical. If you haven't played Tropical Freeze, this is probably one of the best like 2D platformers that I've played. Like Tropical Freeze is so much fun.
I have so many great memories of playing Donkey Kong Country 2, maybe,
Mhm.
or 1 and 2
Yep.
on the Super Nintendo with my dad, like when I was
Oh,
a
see,
wee lad.
and like these games are perfect for that, right? If you have a significant other that's not really like super into games, if you have kids or anything, both the one on the Nintendo Wii and Tropical Freeze. Look at me, I'm already defending it. I don't even know the results of that at the end of the poll. Both of those are they're just great kind of family fun games. It's a good time.
Yeah. Dad, have you played either of these?
No, but I do have fond memories of Donkey Kong,
Yes.
No.
and I would want this to win for sure.
Kumino?
I have played neither one of these, but I have fond memories of both of their earlier installments. So
You might be the first and only person I've ever met that's played a Pikmin game.
I also haven't played Pikmin either, so not a single one.
seriously? So-
I've heard they're really good, and I really need to jump into at least like, I mean, they're all on the Switch, right? 1 and 2 got ported as a remake. They did 3 on the Switch, and now 4 is on the Switch too. So they're all there.
Yeah.
I can play them. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, Pikmin it's really good. Like the little colorful guys, like it
Yeah.
intrigued me, and I just had to get into it. But like I said, like it was the earlier installments. I have not played 3 yet, so I can't really defend either one of these. But I can say that I love both, and I'm excited to see who actually came out on top.
Watching
So-
you guys, listeners, I hope you voted correctly here.
Yeah,
So is this
they did.
possibly like a no heartbreak scenario for Kumino? Like for the first time in the tournament so far?
Yeah, no heartbreak here. I'm happy either way.
All right. Well,
I'm
the
not.
results have been in for a while. I can't say they're just in. They've been in for a while. So thank you guys again for voting. I think the Nintendo division got the most votes,
the
by the
most,
way, in
yeah.
the poll. So
That's right. Represent.
kudos.
Good job, you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Coming out.
61.1% of the votes went to Donkey Kong Tropical
Okay.
Freeze.
That's a little close for comfort for me, but
He was sweating.
I was a little bead there. I mean, Pikmin 3 could be amazing too. I haven't played it, but Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is a great time.
All right. Moving along to match 6 here, we have the number 3 seed Fire Emblem
Yep.
3 Houses against the number 14 seed Splatoon.
Ooh, interesting. Again, two very different games. So Fire Emblem 3 Houses originally came out worldwide in 2019 for the Nintendo Switch. This game saw you play as a teacher in kind of the academy that's here and joining one of the 3 houses that are available to you. There you can create relationships with characters, you can do studying, and all of that is practicing the tactics gameplay, going to war. The relationships that you build with the characters affect the growth that they see on the battlefield and vice versa. You can do permadeath situations where characters that die on the battlefield won't show up in the story anymore. This game, since I think has some pretty decent and hefty DLC, as well as kind of a Muso hack and slash game that came as a sequel to it as well.
Yeah, what's that game called?
I think it's
You
3
know?
Hopes. Fire
'Cause I
Emblem 3
think-
Hopes.
I want to say Chad has told me to play 3 Houses like a million times for the last like 3 years.
Yeah.
And like back when I lived in Ohio, super side note, but I have to talk about it because it makes my heart so sad. I used to always talk about how amazing the libraries were back where I lived up in Ohio because they had an extensive video game section where you could borrow games, and their Switch section was massive, and they always had like the new games probably within like a week or 2 of them releasing.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So I borrowed and played a lot of games from
We'll never know where from.
Right.
We'll never know.
He's so like lost in that memory.
Is it
that he
froze on?
froze,
Right.
His soul was taken out of his body.
much like
There's just
Mario.
yeah, just like
Viewers,
in
just picture
Odyssey, he was
waviness
captured.
over Mike right now. because that's what he's doing. He's flashbacking.
He did.
Yeah.
We cannot see it. He does not realize it.
It's just a real life like Family Guy cutaway where he's just like sitting and thinking about like the past.
Absolutely.
This is what happens. They just freeze.
Yeah. Well, there was an episode where like they made a joke about it where they kind of just like stand around and they're like, oh yeah, it's like now we just like take text messages and smoke cigarettes and stuff. Oh, he's back. There you go.
Hey,
That was a very odd story that I just came back.
It was really funny because you stopped like right as you're gonna like tell the context, and your face looked like you were doing like a real life flashback, but only like you were a part of it. So all of us were just kind of like watching.
That's amazing. But yeah, my heart is sad, and I think it's probably because of the Q-tip demographic that largely populates the area of Florida that I live in. They do not have video game sections at the libraries here. Shocking, probably, but
that's crazy. You would think Florida would have something like that.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, the senior citizens not big gaming fans,
Not big Fire Emblem 3 House fans, apparently.
Yeah, but I would always go be at the library looking at the games. And I would text Chad. I'm serious. I probably text him like 10 times. Like, is this the one that you keep telling me to play? And it was always the hack and slash one.
Yeah. I will say, for someone like you that's liked kind of the triangle strategy and Octopath Traveler, I feel like you would like this game. There is like a lot of life stim stuff, but it is stuff that you can skip, right? Like you can the relationship building and things like that. But if you're not into all that stuff, you can skip and just go right to the tactics battle. And the permadeath stuff is kind of crazy. Like that's kind of cool.
That sounds awesome.
Other game on the list here going up against Splatoon, originally coming out in 2015. Another, at this point, brand new franchise for Nintendo itself, going in the direction of a shooter, which at the time was... I remember being really skeptical about this. It was very visually appealing. It was cute, but Nintendo going in the routes of a 3D shooter, about a multiplayer shooter nonetheless, was a little iffy. But obviously, you can see the multitude of sequels and DLC and content. And now Splatoon has branched outside of like it's Super Smash Brothers as a character in there. Splatoon definitely solidified itself as a main Nintendo game.
Yeah, I remember exactly what you said. It being like, what? They're making a shooter?
They're making a third-person multiplayer shooter? It was like ground war kind of situation.
Their system has the ability to go online and play.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, they were like, and you're going to use gyro. And we're like, okay, Nintendo. I remember the waggle of the Nintendo Wii, but the gyro is actually, a lot of people that play Splatoon a lot actually will do the gyro instead of the analog stick controls, which is interesting.
Kumino, have you played either of these?
Yeah, I played Splatoon because, like everybody else, I was flabbergasted that I'm like, wait, what? Nintendo, that you're doing this? But they did it in the correct way to where kids can be included, parents won't get upset because it's just
very inclusive.
Just paintballs. So again, Nintendo being the place where a family can play the game together.
Yeah,
completely awesome, and that's what it did. Because I even convinced my dad to play this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so Splatoon was pretty good.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, no, I remember playing this, and like you said, it's kind of like hits all aspects of family. It's very like kid oriented and friendly, but there's kind of this very deep like mechanics of it that you can get into and really get good and competitive with the shooting, which is interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome, man, to watch. I mean, of course, I was grown at the time when it came out, but being able that I was still able to convince my father because he was over at the house and he was like, "What are you doing?" I'm playing this game, and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try it. Interesting." And it was just funny watching him.
Yeah.
I mean that is one thing Nintendo's always been great at, just bringing the family together.
Yeah. And like I said, especially now, there's 3 of these games and so much DLC. They've introduced story to it and everything, and wild.
Dad, any experience on either of these?
Nope. I like the bright colors in Splatoon. I probably play that. And my kids would probably like it.
I'm actually not sure where I stand here, so I'm curious of what the poll results are going to be.
This one, hopefully I'm not frozen. This one, pretty close. Like, as close as it could be without it being a tie. 55.6% of the votes go to Fire Emblem 3 Houses.
can respect
but by far the closest match so far. I mean, that's probably like one vote away from being a tie.
Yeah. How do I feel about that? You know what? Okay, I can. That was probably the one that got the closest to me going like almost Splatoon, but I could see a lot of people voting for Fire Emblem in this instance. Like Three Houses just has like if you're talking about like games that have a lot of content, like Three Houses is packed with content. Not only to get like the true ending, do you have to go through all three of these routes and the houses, which are all like 50+ hour games in itself. There's so much content and like extra things you can do with inside like the school and everything. Like I can see it.
Well, Jared, then I would ask you this. Which one do you have the bigger love for?
Well, it's interesting because both of these I feel like are franchises that I've kind of been like adjacent to, but haven't fully dove in. Because I have Splatoon 2, and I've played a little bit of it here and there, but I never like got deep into the Splatoon world. Even though I was like, oh, I love the multiplayer aspect of it. And Fire Emblem is a franchise that I've never really played, but I've always wanted to get into. And Three Houses kind of seems like a really perfect entry point. And I know it was an entry point for a lot of people as well, which is why I can see it kind of being a little more than Splatoon, because this game got people into Fire Emblem.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So I would also ask one thing. Oh, sorry, Kumino, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say Three Houses. It got me into Fire Emblem. Like I've always
there you go.
But like the other ones, they just didn't grab me.
Yeah.
Three Houses did because of that dynamic of, you start out in the school and you got to build these relationships, and then you go off into battle. Like I always loved that aspect of how your choices can be able to affect what you're doing in the game. So yeah, like you said, like it was close without being a tie.
Yeah,
I believe it really could have went either way, because Splatoon being that great fun game that anybody can get on and play, and Fire Emblem just being that game that, if you want to actually have a bunch of content at you and dive deep into the story, that's the game for you.
Yeah, no, it's because both of these, right? Splatoon being a new IP that has now just like skyrocketed in popularity, and Fire Emblem, a franchise that started since like the NES and SNES, has been around forever. But I would say had a pretty niche community of love until Three Houses, and Three Houses kind of like skyrocketed that into kind of the mainstream and everything too. So
yeah. And one of the other areas that I always ask people to look at.
He's frozen again.
You're back. Don't worry, you're back.
You always stop at the wrong.
Yeah, it's like you always leave us on a cliffhanger. It's like you're like, and I was like, what is he gonna say?
We'll never know.
So those dramatic pauses in my speaking cadence, they're there for a reason.
They're intentional.
It's for just the random case that my internet might cut out for like 5 seconds. No, but one of the things I always ask people to think about too, whenever there's a close matchup, either in the polls or just like, they're trying to decide on their own, like what each game did for its genre. Like, where does Fire Emblem Three Houses sit in that like RPG genre as a whole, as opposed to Splatoon in the shooter genre, which they're probably the only one. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was for Nintendo,
right? So I don't know if you're still like on the fence, that's something that you could look at, but I don't know. You seem okay with the poll though.
Yeah.
Okay. Fire Emblem Three Houses moves on and in the closest match so far of the evening. And that takes us to the second matchup here in round 1, and that is the number 7 seed Metroid Dread versus the 10 seed Eternal Darkness, which is a game I've never heard of.
Wow, interesting and funny that these two games are next to each other, because both of them kind of dabbling in the horror kind of suspense aspect of games. So start here with Metroid Dread. originally came out in 2021 action adventure game developed by Mercury System and published by Nintendo. This was a big one as well, right? Metroid, very popular. We talked about kind of mainstay Nintendo franchises. Metroid was one of them, but kind of had been dormant for a while. We saw a lot of activity on the GameCube with Prime, and then we saw like remakes of some of the old ones in the 3DS, but we hadn't seen a ton at that point. And Dread, I'm pretty sure Dread was one they had like hinted about a long time ago coming out. So I remember Metroid fans freaking out when Dread got announced. But really tight 2D platforming, and again adds this aspect with the oh gosh, what are they called? Oh, the Emmys, that kind of add a level of suspense and almost borderline horror to some of these games that is really interesting that they were able to do in a 2D platformer. Eternal Darkness, on the other hand, a 2002 action adventure video game developed by Silicon Knights and published by Nintendo. This game, it's hard because this game probably doesn't hold up as well now, but the things that it did back in the day was it really tried to mess with like psychosis. Like that's the whole point of this game. As your character is going through the world in the game, it's messing with his the psychology of him, his sanity. And as you dive deeper and deeper into this, it kind of like the character goes more and more insane to the point where it starts bleeding into like the player, right? It'll like change your TV to channel 3, and it'll like the volume will adjust to like try to mess with the player's sanity. I mean, again, all things that like wouldn't work now because we don't have like CRTVs anymore to like adjust with. But at least back in the day, it was very much like the Metal Gear Solid thing, right? Like taking out the first port and putting in the second port to fight Psycho Mantis. It was that kind of like interactivity between like player and game that really made Eternal Darkness stand out. And it was a mature title. Like everyone's like, oh, Nintendo, family friendly, and then this mature game that is messing with your real life insanity comes out and kind of blows people away.
That sounds pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Any guesses on how the poll ended up?
I thought Dread has this. Dread's more popular. Eternal Darkness, I think, is a lot of people's like, oh, they have a lot of nostalgia for it. And again, it did a lot of those things that were really cool. But people love Metroid, and Dread was one that hardcore Metroid fans had been waiting for so long. And it delivered too.
Where does Jared's heart lie in this matchup, though?
Jared's heart lies with Dread. I didn't finish Dread. I played a decent amount of it. Metroid is a franchise that I hadn't delved into a lot. I'm actually playing through Fusion right now, which was the one on the Game Boy Advance that a lot of people really enjoy. But yeah, I haven't played Eternal Darkness, but I can appreciate what it did. But I think if it was my pick, I would have gone with Dread.
Kumino, have any thoughts on this matchup?
Listen, I'm the only thing that I'm gonna say is Rule 34, and I'm just leave it at that.
Oh no! Oh, well,
I don't get it.
Okay, I thought you had froze for a minute. Okay, so.
You gotta explain Rule 34. Pretty much any character can be like sexualized, and that's what Rule 34 is anything can be. And if you like Rule 34 character, that's usually the stuff that comes up. So
yeah, so like
shame.
No. I don't mean for me. I mean for the community. Like
yeah.
I'm sitting there like. Okay, so Eternal Darkness is
Kumino is a man of
game.
the people.
Right, but to please the masses, Rule 34, let them have it. Let them have their fun.
I mean, Samus is the main character in the other one, so do with that what you will.
Right, exactly.
Right. Well, you'll be pleased to know that Metroid Dread took the vote, 61.1%.
Well, I'm glad that Eternal Darkness did get some votes because, like I said, it was a cool game for sure.
Yeah. I remember picking it up. It was it Blockbuster or Video USA?
Oh man, Blockbuster.
Right, it was that one of them. I cannot remember. And Jesus Christ, me and my friends, we was like, okay, this game is trippy. It's so good. Like,
yeah, this game was it's PT for the time. Like this was that's what Eternal Darkness is.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
dude, that PT demo, holy crap.
Oh yeah.
That was wild.
Also, it took me way too long to realize PT is just playable trailer. And that's like, that kind of takes the wind out of the sails a little bit for PT. or teaser or something. It's one of those T words. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll happen someday. Probably not. Wasn't that supposed to be like a Silent Hill sequel or something?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a Silent Hills game with Norman Reedus, and then he was Mr. Mailman himself in Death Stranding. Which is a good game. I beat Death Stranding recently, and it's a good time.
That's funny because BioCiv just streamed it, and he's like, I don't understand why people like this game, but I've started.
Yeah, but once you finish it, you're like, I get it. But in the moment, you're like, I don't know why people like this. I mean, it's still, I rolled credits and I was like, I don't know what happened in this story, but it was an adventure for sure.
It's like a post-apocalyptic Paperboy. That's what I
I mean, and like its roots are like all about connection and everything. So like at least like on the sub level, I can understand of like, people connecting and trying to grow after apocalyptic events. We don't have any apocalyptic events, but like 2020, we're all there and we know what happened. So it's like, I can understand.
I was hoping for it in 2020. Well, not hoping for apocalyptic, but
I was like hoping for apocalyptic event.
just smallly enough, like a little bit of Resident Evil.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Oh, geez. All right, we made it to the final matchup in round 1, and that is Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver, the number 2 seed, mind you, going up against the 15 seed Punch-Out, the Wii version.
About to have our hearts broken.
Unbiased third party, unbiased fourth party. Okay. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver originally came out in 2009 for the Nintendo DS remakes of the beloved games that came out in Gold and Silver in the Johto region. This game had a lot of quality of life aspects to it, as well as a visual style that represented the mainline Pokemon games at the time, the Nintendo DS Diamond and Pearl franchise. This game was interesting because, like, I don't know if you guys remember, but it came packed in with like the little Pokewalker, and you could like put your Pokemon in it and walk around and like level it up as well, which is interesting. And also, copies of those with the Pokewalker are wildly expensive online. So trying to get any of them is insane. And Punch-Out originally came out in 2009 for the Nintendo Wii. This also being a kind of reboot of the franchise, Super Punch-Out for the SNES, and utilized the Wii's waggle physics for boxing. And honestly, I do remember this being pretty fun. Like initially playing this for the first time and being able to like box and that reflecting into the game was like an interesting gimmick and a fun one that I remember enjoying at the time.
Yeah.
And the first Punch-Out I hadn't played any of the other ones since that. So that was my first introduction to Punch-Out.
Yeah. So no one cares about Punch-Out. Let's talk about Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Wow. You know what's funny too is I wanted to go in this and be like, vote Punch-Out. Like I wanted to try to figure out how to like do Punch-Out over Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I don't know if I can, but I mean, I have a lot of issues with Gen 2, so I probably could find it.
Well, hey, Johto's my favorite region. But this, surprisingly, we had to have a Pokemon game on there.
Oh yeah.
So
obviously
this was the highest rated in the time frame. So like we only go back to the year 2000, had to have a cutoff somewhere. But this was the highest rated Pokemon game, which was kind of surprising. Is it surprising to any of you guys, or did you expect this one to be the top?
No, this one makes sense, right? Like a lot of people have fondness for this. There's a lot of people that played Gen 1 and then Gen 2 and then dropped off and then were reintroduced to Pokemon back on these remakes. They're like, oh, there's those Gold and Silver games that I played as a kid. Let me try that. And they kind of got reintroduced with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Also, people just like love the idea of Pokemon following you, which was introduced here. So they're always just like, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, they're the best games in the world. So I can understand why they like this.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this came out during Gen 4, correct?
Yeah. So it was the Gen 4 games that came after Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah. So being that Gen 4 had a ton of problems, I could see this being rated higher than any of those games.
Yeah.
I really
remember a lot
wanted
of that too.
Really wanted to put Arceus on this. I had to catch myself per our conversation.
The Arse phone, you know?
Yeah. But that
I mean,
game,
you could have put it on there, and
I
it probably would
tried.
have actually won.
We could have fought for it, but
its average rating was 78.
Really?
For context, Heart Gold Soul Silver is a 92.6. And the lowest game in the Nintendo bracket is 82.5. So it
you had to keep it in the brackets.
Yeah,
in the rating.
It would have been really hard to justify against a lot of the other games if unless you're like a diehard Pokemon fan like all of us are.
Yeah.
But let's go to the poll and see if Mike begins to cry or not.
Honestly, it would be flabbergasted if Punch-Out wins.
Right.
88.9% of the votes.
Punch-Out.
Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Yeah,
we're safe at least for another round.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, again, I think any Pokemon game could have been here, and it probably would have. Not saying that Punch-Out is bad by any means, but I'm just saying like that Pokemon has like that staying power of like its name, right? It's like Pokemon versus like this Wii game that I have no idea what it is. Like Pokemon's gonna win.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, hey, we made it through round one. So thank you again, everyone who voted in the polls. Seriously, thank you. That was
you guys
awesome.
are the real MVPs.
Nintendo had the largest amount of votes. So again, that's
that's right.
Awesome.
The best.
Appreciate your participation and also appreciate the fact that we didn't have to argue against any of your picks. That's always a plus. Whoops! I'm looking here and I accidentally like subconsciously moved Kingdom Battle on instead of Mario Odyssey.
The polls are that's rigged. It's rigged. He's like, and there's
right. So you don't let me do this. Don't let me do this, guys. Okay, so this point forward, Jared, we're gonna start taking the criteria that we read at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah,
we don't have to go like super in depth.
You want to save your good stuff toward the end,
right?
For the end of it, okay.
Because again, you're going to end up representing one of these games at the end in a debate against the Xbox winner. So don't really want to pull all of your cards out of the bag. You want to save some ammunition if you can, but we're going to start looking a little more critically at some of these games and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
When the matchups call for it, if they do.
Right.
So with that being said, the first matchup of round 2, we have, I don't anticipate us doing this for this matchup, but we have Zelda Breath of the Wild against Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Oh, okay. I mean, still an interesting matchup for sure. Oh man, Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing. I mean, do you want me to go down with like the criteria for each one of those things, or
where? No, you don't have to do that. But where do you like?
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, Breath of the Wild.
Played. It sounds like a decent amount of both of these. Yes.
Yes, I played a decent amount of both of these, and I think that Animal Crossing New Horizons probably has a soft spot in a lot of people's hearts, mine for sure, because it definitely was a game that kind of just helped distract us during that time, right? It was very early on. We all kind of bonded over Animal Crossing. Like I said, my wife and I played a ton of it, and it was just a game that kind of like helped out in a real world situation where there was real tension and emotions and stresses and anxieties. So I feel like that also gives Animal Crossing kind of a leg in, but regardless of its, impact on the community at the time as a game itself, looking now at Breath of the Wild, I mean, it'll at least for me, it was kind of that reinvigoration of like exploration in video games. And I talk about this before, and probably lots of other people have, but it gave me the Ocarina of Time feel. Like I hadn't had that for a long time. Like I love playing video games, and I don't think I'll ever not play video games. And I loved playing Zelda games since Ocarina of Time. But that kind of like childhood wonder of exploration and traveling and discovery, I had not had that before prior to Breath of the Wild. And that game did a very good job of doing that.
Kumino, thoughts?
I'm in agreement with him. At New Horizon, during that time, especially since everybody was out of work and everything, it helped a lot of, I hate to say it this way, please don't attack me, female gamers get into the streaming scene, and allow them to be able to play a game. But Breath of the Wild was a game that a lot of them end up going to after or while they was playing New Horizon. As well as Breath of the Wild, it's regarded as one of the best Nintendo titles because of the story, the gameplay, and it proved what could be done on the Switch. Because us being in the Pokemon community, especially when Legends came out, we was like, this is what we want, because they did it with Zelda, why they not doing it with Pokemon? So Zelda is kind of that benchmarker. But New Horizon, it is good, and a lot of people are still playing it now. So
Dad, I know you recently gone through Breath of the Wild. No? Tears of the Kingdom was the one?
The only thing I would say about Zelda, because I haven't played this one, obviously it worked, right? What they did worked so well that they made a second one that looked exactly like that, played like it, reused the same map, added to it, so they got the formula right with that one, and doing it differently, kind of reinventing Zelda, really. I mean, it plays great, looks great.
Unlike it not only like reinvented Zelda, but its gameplay mechanics and loop kind of bled into other games like Arceus, like Sonic Frontiers,
Immortals Phoenix Rising, Sonic Frontiers, like the whole like I can climb anything kind of thing was implemented going forward in a lot of other games.
Kumino, was it you that said Pal World is like Breath of the Wild and Pokemon and all that
I said it's Pokemon, Breath of the Wild, Ark Survival Evolved.
All of those.
And a whole bunch of stuff.
My only thing against Animal Crossing too, I mean, we talked about a lot of things that it did well, but with those kind of games, I feel like you have to have some kind of continuation of updating and adding things, if anything, to just keep people interested in it, whether it's like a tiny little Christmas decoration or furniture or something along those lines. That I understand you can't add content to a game forever, but a game like that in my opinion feels like it has like a stopping point. I feel like you have to continuously do something to keep people engaged, and that's why we've seen a lot of people fall off of Animal Crossing, because they like you play kind of until your point, and you're like, well, I'm done with it now at this point.
Yeah. So Zelda's moving forward, yes?
Yep.
Nice. Next up, we have the 5-seed Xenoblade Chronicles against the 4-seed Mario Odyssey, not Kingdom Battle, like I erroneously had, but my heart wishes was true.
It's like Mario Odyssey parentheses Kingdom Battle.
How do you feel about this one, Jared?
Oh man, I mean, this is another one where I definitely lean towards, and maybe I don't know if it's because it's the more popular title or what, but Mario Odyssey, another game that really kind of took the 3D Mario platformer and rolled with it and continued to have that, but adding little things like Cappy, right? Like that, and being able to capture other creatures and everything. I remember watching the trailer and thinking like, how is that going to be implemented into gameplay smoothly? because right, it's Mario. He jumps around, he slides, and whatever. It feels smooth. But how are you gonna make that? How are you gonna replicate that same feeling in all these multitude of like captures he can do? And they nailed it. Like it feels good, and like when you see a creature and you move around, it feels and moves like how you think it will. And they did a fantastic job of being able to do that. I think Xenoblade Chronicles, it was a fantastic feat in like JRPG and the scale. You know, I talked about the scale before. The game is huge. It's massive. It has a really interesting story. I think the biggest crutch with those games for a lot of people is just the sheer length. Like they are really long. So a lot of people feel like they don't even want to dive in initially to take that in. But I know they hit on some pretty deep topics, especially with like going forward in games like 3. But yeah, it's no surprise why Mario obviously is still staying around and his games are still extremely popular every single time. And Odyssey is no surprise there either.
Any objections on the panel to moving Mario forward?
Nope.
Nah, I don't have a strong enough argument for Xenoblade.
Nice.
I do want to play, like Xenoblade is a franchise that's there. It's up there. I want to try it out. I want to play it. But Mario, man, Mario Odyssey.
I feel like you have to be. It has to be a very special JRPG to knock off a Mario game, and not just a Mario game, but a Mario game that like it innovated in a way and added a new like mechanic that, as you said, like really played out very well, surprisingly. And is Xenoblade like that special of a JRPG to do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I was actually shocked that Bayonetta did not
win here.
Yeah. Because maybe, possibly, I mean, no, it wasn't going to beat Mario. But I mean, listen, it's one of them games that everybody knows about it, because if not, again, Rule 34.
Yeah.
So,
yep. She's there. You know her. You know you love her.
She's Joker's mom, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
I also feel like this is kind of off topic, but you didn't mention it in this matchup particularly, but a lot in round 1. Like, I love how the benchmark to a good Nintendo game or IP is like they have a character in Smash. Like,
yeah, I did say that.
they made it to Smash Brothers. So
they made it to Smash. If you can make it, that's the like thing. If you can make it there, make it anywhere.
Yeah,
I feel like that might have to be like a criteria category.
Yeah.
It's like, did they have a character in Smash?
Listen, that's some of the secret ammo that he's holding back for when he's arguing against Xbox.
True. Maybe I just okay.
You spoiled my whole plan. I wasn't gonna say anything, but hey, they're in Smash, and I'm just gonna drop the mic and leave.
Right. Like, hey, is Marcus Phoenix in Smash?
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't
think so. Didn't think so.
All right. All right. Moving on to the next match, we have Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, our 6 seed, against the 3 seed Fire Emblem 3 House. Little fire ice matchup here.
Oh man. Oh, this one's hard.
Just see the heartstrings being pulled right now.
Yeah. I'd already talked about how much I love Tropical Freeze, right? I think that's probably some of the best like 2D platformers Donkey Kong wise that we've had in a long time. It's a great game. It's a great family game. It feels good to play. But just talking about games that have like staying power, again, Fire Emblem 3 Houses not only came out with just so much content to it that there's so much debate about like game price versus time and what's worth our time, what price is worth our money. And if we're talking about things like that, like 3 Houses has so much content to it. Not only that, but it kind of reintroducing people into kind of this beloved franchise. People went back and checked out some of the older games. We got engaged afterward going forward. There's the mobile game. Fire Emblem did so much for like Nintendo and the community, and it breaks my heart that we don't have another Donkey Kong game. I think I'm voting Fire Emblem in this round.
So what makes Donkey Kong like such a great 2D platformer? And where does it sit like in that genre? Not just in Donkey Kong games, but like across the board.
Yeah, so Tropical Freeze is interesting because it takes a lot of what makes 2D platformers fun, right? Interesting worlds, exciting kind of boss fights. It adds co-op into it, which is a lot of fun. A lot of 2D platformers. I mean, now we see a lot of them, like a lot of 2D Mario games now have co-op, but not a lot of them did before. And they play with that too, right? When you're playing as Diddy Kong or Dixie, you can like jump on Donkey Kong's back. And right, if you have a younger brother or a sibling that is having a hard time, like, hey, jump on Donkey Kong's back, they can still do things. They can like throw items from Donkey Kong's back and everything. You can throw the players around to interact with different puzzles and enemies. And the game visually is beautiful. It runs really well. I think it's just kind of like the puzzles they did. That game really motivated me to collect everything, which is interesting. I don't know like how or why they did that, but I like the little secrets and collecting the Kong throughout every level. I was really inspired to do all of that too. So
and on the flip side, Fire Emblem, it how does it rack up or stack up against games of its likeness?
Yeah, so Fire Emblem's interesting because I believe this one it deviated away from the normal Fire Emblem gameplay. Like I'm pretty sure before it almost had like a rock, paper, scissors formula where it's like, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, because I don't know Fire Emblem. It's like bows are good against spears and spears are good against swords and like things like that. There was like a rock, paper, scissors system of that. And they change up that gameplay here, but from what I've heard, at least from other people that have played it, it still like works really well. I know that's what people were excited about with Engage, because Engage kind of brought that back, but it was my favorite thing with like JRPGs and games like that is like the relationships you can have with your characters and your party. And for the most part, that's very surface level, right? You can only go as far as like that narrative will let you. There's not a lot of interacting there. But in Three Houses, you, depending on which route you go, which one of the three houses you choose, there's usually like 6 to 8 characters that are in there, and all of them have interesting personalities. And again, the longer and the more time you spend with them in the houses, that reflects on the battlefield, right? They're more powerful there. They're better at doing certain moves. So you're almost immediately rewarded with your want to like grow and bond with these characters, and that reflects in the battle too. So it's, I mean, and again, if you don't want to do a lot of the life sim stuff, you could skip it, but it's cool that they blend really well together too. And I don't know how much of that was present in previous Fire Emblem games.
It wasn't.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
I mean,
so
you sold it for me. I mean, I'd probably get Fire Emblem.
Yeah,
because of
definitely
that.
get it. Definitely.
it sounds like, yeah, it definitely has like the staying power.
Yeah.
And we're not dunking on Donkey Kong. It's a great game.
I love that game so much.
It's hard to stack up against a game like Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
So Fire Emblem moves forward, and fun fact: right now we have the 1 seed, the 4 seed, and the 3 seed.
Oh my gosh!
Can we complete the quadra effect here? Will the number 2 seed Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver?
Oh god, what's it up against?
Metroid
Dread, and complete the 1 through 4 in the Elite or the Sweet 16.
This one really has me torn. I thought the last round, like I thought I was torn, but this one really has me torn. I'm trying to impartial fourth judge. Yeah, I mean, I dunk on Gen 2 a lot, right? And I think those games have a lot of issues. The pacing,
besmirch my
the pacing in that game feels awful. You're beating the Elite Four with like level 40s or so. The Pokemon distribution, I never feel like I'm getting interesting Pokemon throughout the entire game, like still running into like Zubats and Sentrants in like Victory Road. Like, where's all my interesting Pokemon? I want to see more interesting Pokemon.
I'm really hoping that this turns at some point.
That being said, Generation 2 is such an interesting Pokemon game, right? Like, not only did they give us a new generation, a whole new set of Pokemon, they're like, hey, now you can go and revisit that last game too. This is a sequel, and you can go play the last one in the old game. And this beside Black 2 and White 2 is really the only true sequel that we've had in Pokemon, where a lot of characters that we saw in Gen 1 and in Kanto are different, and they're aged and things have happened. Like at like the volcano has erupted in like Blaine's gym's in a completely different area. Like things like that are all really interesting and really help fix the problem that I have with Pokemon is like sometimes the worlds don't feel as lived in some of the games. And a sequel to that, like with Black 2, White 2, even with like Pokemon and characters aging up, it just feels more like a real lived in world here. Metroid Dread,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I didn't finish that game, right? I played a little bit of it. I know how much Metroid means to people and how much Dread meant as well. And the developers of Metroid Dread nailed it. They hit it out of the park with this game. The cutscenes are beautiful. The game is very smooth. It runs fantastic. It adds this level of horror and anxiety that I don't think I've ever felt in a 2D platformer before. Aside from playing very hard platformers like Celeste that want to make me rip my hair out when I was playing it.
Yes.
Celeste is fantastic. Play Celeste if you haven't, but that game stresses the hell out of me.
Yes.
Yes. That's probably the only other time that I felt that much level of stress and anxiety. So it's cool that they were able to do that in Metroid Dread. I think with that being said, for my vote, I think it has to go to Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
One thing that I just want to, again, my crutch when it comes to these tough matchups, like what, if anything, did Dread do to like improve the franchise and like push it forward in a new way? Was it just like the horror aspect, or like were there other mechanics maybe that I'm not like a Metroid guy, so I couldn't.
Yeah, and neither have I, just based off my little information. But yeah, the horror aspects, some of the bosses, it added a level of like difficulty. Like apparently some of those bosses are really hard to beat too, which is kind of cool. But not in terms of that, not more than Pokemon, right? Like I think even Heart Gold Soul Silver being a remake of an existing game still did a lot that fans even now are clamoring for. Even little things like Pokemon following you, you think these mechanics are so small, but they mean something to people. Again, it goes back to that whole like wanting Pokemon to feel like a real lived in world, and just adding like being able to see your Pokemon walk around was just enough to make people feel like these things exist and help immersion. That's probably the best word. Help people immersed into the world.
Yeah. Unlike Gen 2, like introduced some like the breeding mechanic, which is
like pivotal in like competitive gameplay and things.
You can get eggs you can breed the perfect Pokemon. Also added cool things like baby Pokemon.
Shinies
Shinies
were introduced not in this game, but in Gen 2.
Yeah, and I'm considering it this game because it's a remake of Gen 2. Just for,
that's
just to help my case, because Pokemon's got to go forward. But shinies breeding, I mean, those two things alone, completely like absolute must-have core fundamentals to Pokemon today. And it's we just played through Gen 9. Like how many years has Pokemon been around? 30, 25?
30 in 2 years,
yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty wild. Kumo, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. So Pokemon has been here for almost 30 years. That's what I was about to say. Of course, it has to be the one to go, because no matter how much the fans may complain about something in the game always did something for the community and its genre of gaming. Hence the reason why so many other games come along like it steal from it, I guess, if you want to say it like that. But honestly, just personally me, I probably would have picked Platinum or one of the Unova games, because I know they are so highly regarded.
Yeah, but Rain.
Unova
But like,
is XY or no Black
Yeah.
White, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
technically, but I mean, Metroid's been around longer. Metroid came out in '86. So Metroid's technically been around longer, but obviously Pokemon has had way more of a staying power. Clearly, is this? If I showed someone Samus and I showed someone Pikachu, someone would be able to identify Pikachu rather than Samus. So
Yeah,
Well, it
but
depends. Did you show it
is
to
it in-
Kumino's friends? Because
Samus would just be, who is that sexy looking lady right there? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they would be like, and that's the reason why is because like I remember when Samus was actually shown as a woman. Like,
yeah, it's in that like the end of that game. Is it the first one or one of the second ones or?
I want to
not the first
say it was
one.
Maybe it was Return of Samus, the second one.
Yeah, it was the second one, but also like I feel like it was Nintendo's answer to what Doom was, and so like they did a good job with nailing that, but like not enough people actually dove in to play it.
Yep.
Nor did it actually do anything for those genres of game because, like I said, like when you look at it, you're gonna go, "Oh well, I'd much rather play Doom than play this."
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Jeffrey, you were gonna say something?
Yeah. Has
you were there. I saw the gears turning. You got there.
But which one has been in Super Smash Brothers?
Oh, come on, Pikachu's
both.
Are there any Gen 2 Pokemon in Smash Brothers though?
I mean,
Pichu.
Well, technicality, I take it.
Pichu? Is Pichu a playable character?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think Pichu's the only Gen 2 Pokemon in there.
I mean,
but there's a lot of Pokemon in Smash Bros. Too.
yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I think I just still think, I know it's like the category I harp on the most, but just the things that Gen 2 did for Pokemon are just monumental. And even like in Pal World, breeding is a thing, and like even not just breeding to get new Pokemon or like duplicate Pokemon, but the stat thing is a part of Pal World. Like people are being psychotic about breeding the perfect statted Pal in Pal World. So like that mechanic alone has like just fundamentally changed the monster taming genre. But so HGSS
Pokemon.
moving forward. All right. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 seed are all still remaining. The only 4 games left. How wild is that?
It's about to get really heartbreaking.
Xbox almost did it. Xbox almost did it. They had the 1, 2, 3, and 5 seed. So and PC with that was just, that episode was all over the place. Like you'll just have to go watch that one.
It was.
So we have 3 matches left, guys.
Okay.
This round determines the championship of the Nintendo match next round. So we have Zelda Breath of the Wild, the number 1 seed, against the number 4 seed, Mario Odyssey.
Oh gosh. Oh, this is awful.
That hurts.
Oh, what an awful pairing. Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. Again, these are both year 1 launch titles of the Switch too, right? They started off this console with a bang, by the way. Crazy start for a console generation. Yeah, man. This is going to be a hard one because there's so many things about both of these that I love. I mean, we talked about like a fun factor too. And Mario Odyssey not only being very, very colorful, and I talked about them doing a really good job of making everything, again, immersion. Everything feels like it should. When you're capturing a character, when you're capturing a creature with the new hat mechanic, it all feels very natural. It all feels like how it's supposed to feel. And the game is just fun to play. Mario feels fun to move. The worlds and exploring through the different worlds are a ton of fun too. Like it's just a fun game, a fun, colorful game to play. It added new music that I listen to all the time. Like the Mario Odyssey like theme and soundtrack is one that I can never get out of my head. And it's still being a very traditional like Mario 3D platformer, throws some twists and turns at you at some of the end levels, not only with its platforming and incorporating the hat mechanic to not only movement and platforming, but in the story too. The story goes to some interesting routes that I actually wasn't even expecting when I was playing through that the first time. But man, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, we bring up fun as well, and the best thing about the fun factor in game is feeling like a kid with just a toy box of things to play with. And with Breath of the Wild's kind of lean towards having more than just one weapon, right? More than just base sword, master sword. You have a whole slew of weapons that you can have at your disposal, and you can get weapons from enemies, and you can move things around. You can kind of very play with your play style, which you couldn't really do as much. There wasn't as much customizability with Zelda games prior to that. For me, it just added in the fun. Like it was fun grabbing a stick and having a stick be like your first weapon, and just like little things like that were oh so good. I think it has to be Breath of the Wild.
So
please argue me. Tell me I'm wrong.
I would ask you about
Yes.
like the replayability value of both, because Mario tends to carry that
right
throughout its games, and always adding something fresh and new.
Right.
But let's just stick to that, the replayability. What say you on that?
Yeah, so I mean, Mario Odyssey is fantastic in this category because what they did really well is the moons. Moons in Mario Odyssey were that perfect, just like dopamine hit. It was that perfect instant gratification where no matter where you were, no matter what you were doing, your exploration was always rewarded. You were always getting a moon for even doing very simple things. And I think that was really good. And even after, like, there's tons of moons in this game, and you need very little of that large number to finish the game. So there's always something to go back to. So like you said, it kind of has that staying power too. But I would also argue that Breath of the Wild has that same thing, because for me, within the first, like, I think year or so, I played through Breath of the Wild like 3 times. And
wow. Nice.
For one, even to this day, there's still aspects of that map that I haven't seen. There's still parts of that game that I haven't experienced. We talk about that instant gratification with things like the Koroks. Yes, the end goal for the Korok Sea mission is not worth it. But hey, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. It's the friends we made along the way, you know?
Right.
But not only that, but the way that it's very open-ended with its narrative, right? The 3 times I played through that game, I went about the story in different ways, right? You can go to each point of interest, you can get power-ups, and depending on what direction and which ones you get first will drastically influence how you play the game. At this point now, I usually always hit the Rivali's Gale. I get that power-up first, because being able to just lift yourself up and fly is such a good early game mechanic. And the first time I played through that was the last thing that I got. So it's just like you can kind of mix up how you play and how you go about the story, and that'll change your experience every time.
That's something I would argue as well for Zelda is, well, I mean, if we look at them as a whole, right? I mean, Zelda has always had the better story, in my opinion. Especially with these 2 specific games against each other. Mario story's there, but you're not really playing it for the story as much,
right?
But Zelda, it like another immersion thing, like totally, cool. I'm with you. You sold me.
Nice. Well, Kumino, any objections to Zelda moving forward?
None here.
No. All right. Well, Zelda makes it.
That means I gotta do this again.
Yep. And now we're down to the number 3 seed Fire Emblem 3 Houses against the number 2 seed Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Another interesting one. Wow.
These one thing that while you're like, tearing yourself apart inside trying to figure out what to do, I couldn't imagine being in any of your shoes, the representatives, because
Yeah, this is not fun.
it is so hard to compare games of like such different
Different.
genres.
Yeah, they're so different, and trying to
How do you-
find like the through line here that might connect
Yeah.
them.
How do you compare Zelda and Mario, and how do you compare
Yeah.
Fire Emblem and Pokemon?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do have their similarities, right? Both having a version of turn-based combat. I talked about how you can interact with the characters in Fire Emblem Three Houses, kind of build your bond with them, and that reflects to the battle when you're doing. I think that to a lesser extent, or to an extent, that Pokemon does that same thing, right? You, especially with Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, because you have that Pokewalker. The more time you're spending with that Pokemon, the more time you spend with your Pokemon, they will grow and they will level up. And Fire Emblem has a permadeath option built in game. You can play through Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Nuzlocke, and you can get that same sadness as well, losing the Pokemon.
I would even throw in, they introduced the happiness mechanic in this
Oh, was
generation
Happiness
too,
Evo introduced here? Never
I
mind, it's
think-
Fire Emblem. Let's go with Fire Emblem. It's not Pokemon.
right? Because like Togepi evolves. You have Espeon and Umbreon.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, even Pokemon has that relationship building. Like you had to groom it, and like, I mean, you didn't have to, but yeah, I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, this one's hard, and it might just come down to it might just come down to popularity in the first place. I know Fire Emblem reintroduced a lot of fans to this franchise, but so did Pokemon, right? Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Gen 4 was a lot of people's reintroduction to Pokemon after kind of dipping out for a little bit in the earlier games, and Pokemon has since continued to just be a juggernaut in pop culture. And I do truly think that Heart Gold, Soul Silver, even though I have some issues with it, did help in just continuing that as well. Yeah,
so we could just quickly go through, just be like, gameplay mechanics. Which game and its genre do you think takes this category? We don't even have to go like super in depth, just like
Oh man. Even though I think that Fire Emblem has at least a more complicated being a good thing here, gameplay mechanic and loop there, I think Pokemon's is more interesting. I think it's a lesser version in complexity than Fire Emblems. Actually, maybe not, because there's so much types that you have to think about. That's the argument I was going to make. Is Pokemon really has an interesting gameplay mechanic with all of the typings and the resistances. And I think this is the generation that also introduced held items. Like you could put held items on Pokemon. Obviously, it wasn't as big as it is now, but you can have like berries that would cure ailments and status conditions and everything. So in terms of that, I think it's Pokemon's gameplay mechanic I like better.
Story or narrative? I mean, that should be pretty self-explanatory.
I mean, it has to be Fire Emblems. Although I will make the argument here that I will argue for Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I think this game does have an interesting narrative, again, because it is one of those sequel Pokemon games. We got to see what happens to Team Rocket after we take down Giovanni in Gen 1. We can see the remnants and the shambles of these rocket grunts that still believe that Giovanni's out there, that still believe that he's hiding in the shadows, trying to rebuild Team Rocket somewhere. We get introduced to characters like Red and his relationship with Giovanni and how that is connected. We get to see at the very end of the game you fighting the protagonist for the first game, even though this doesn't have kind of a deep narrative. At least for a Pokemon game, I think it has one of the better ones for sure.
That's fair. That's actually fair. But man, it's still hard to argue for a Pokemon narrative.
Yeah, it really. I was trying there. I was trying my best.
Kuno,
the
as
reason-
someone who's played a good amount of both,
Yes.
what say you on this? Obviously, it's got to be
the
Fire
reason
Emblem with the
that
narrative.
it is so difficult is because at the end of the day, Fire Emblem, it has more meat to its story than Pokemon ever does,
Yeah.
truly. And the fact that when you replay Fire Emblem, you can replay it differently than you can with Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's so hard to play Pokemon differently, especially the earlier games, because you were relegated to route Pokemon. It was only so many different Pokemon that you were going to find on that route,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
So you couldn't really truly change up your team. And listen, I'm gonna go with Pokemon, but it's just the simple fact that in your heart that truly Fire Emblem is more than likely probably the better game.
My only thing is, as I'm trying to think, like, if I hadn't played Pokemon, right, or if I had like maybe only played a couple of the first ones, and if I looked at both of these on face value, Fire Emblem feels like it has more content, like you said, more meat to it than Pokemon would. It feels like, and even just like comparing them, like when they came out, like if I was showing a kid these two games, they'd probably want to lean towards the more modern one. They'd probably want to lean towards Fire Emblem because it has voice acting, it has cutscenes, it has levels of difficulty, it has just a ton of meat, a ton of content to that as well. And Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Pokemon have done a lot for the Pokemon franchise in the community for sure. But I think Fire Emblem in at least 3 houses has also done that too.
Yeah, it has. And that's the problem.
Man, I just I don't know. What do we do? I mean, honestly, this is Jared's call, and then we just gotta tell him if he's right or wrong. It really, honestly, it is very hard to do this in an objective fashion because we are all admittedly like on
we are
literally
the
on
Pokeballs.
every
exactly.
article of clothing I have on right now is Pokemon. So I am literally wearing it on my sleeve. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have to make the decision. I just have to be convinced by your argument.
Here we go.
Okay.
This is the big thing that separates the two.
Okay. Hey, me.
Which one has the bigger community?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
That's obvious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're right. Okay. You're right. I gotta go Pokemon.
Community's huge.
Yeah. Heart Gold, Soul Silver is my vote. You know what's funny? Literally like seconds before that, in my mind, I had decided Fire Emblem.
That's because like we know
you brought up the
Fire
community
Emblem,
thing, and I was like, oh, I mean, he's
Fire
right.
Emblem is the better game, but like when you take it to argument's sake, you're gonna be like, people gonna be
now,
like,
if the argument was who has
now?
more toxic fans, I mean, Pokemon wins hands down in that
also,
category.
So, like, I mean, obviously, the goal is to not put forward the most popular game. We are truly looking for the best exclusive,
which is what I was trying not to do. I was trying not to just be like Pokemon because Pokemon popular. But
you bring up community though, and that brings up a point that's kind of like a part of the criteria. It's like which game would be more fun for like the mass population? Take your not like hardcore gamer, just like a casual gamer off the street, and you have them play 5 hours of both games. Which one do you think would appeal the most? Right.
And I think you even say that solidifies my answer even more, because even though I talked about how Fire Emblem prior to 3 Houses was niche, and 3 Houses was kind of like the jumping off point for a lot of people, right? Got a lot of people into Fire Emblem. I still think it's pretty niche. Pokemon is worldwide. Like everyone to an extent knows of or plays Pokemon. And I think that has a lot of power to it.
Yeah, it does. So
Fire Emblem's still just too niche.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless you like using your brain to strategize.
Hey,
I mean,
did
you
Mike
strategize.
freeze?
I believe he did.
I wasn't sure he was just thinking or not.
He's thinking while flashbacking again.
Dude,
exactly.
That's the funniest thing. I was gonna bring up the whole like
Oh, he's just gone this time.
Wow.
Why am I down here?
All right, so
can't.
You're making the vote. You're making the vote, buddy. What do you think?
Pressure on you.
Pokemon.
Okay, there we go.
Because
made it so easily.
It's multi-generational. Like it's obviously lasting, but like everyone loves and knows Pokemon, right? It's just the obvious choice.
Yeah.
And like you said, not saying that Fire Emblem isn't a great game. Like I would probably play a game like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to set my newfound love for Pokemon aside, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think, and I've not played this game. I haven't played either one of these games, but I would probably still choose Pokemon.
Yeah, I know. I went in this thinking like, okay, I'm not gonna just choose Pokemon because I think it's the more popular version. I mean, we talked about some of that, right? Community and staying power and everything. But at the end of the day, I think, Pokemon.
Yeah, like it has to be. Pokemon will always be that game that you can play as long as you're able to play it, no matter your age.
So
what? So now we have Mike in the hot seat. Okay,
it's
Mike
from the future.
Right. He came from the future. Hey. He knows the results already. Mike, go ahead and make the decision.
All right, so
you came back to us from the future. How was it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Thanks.
That booty cheek Florida internet. Telling you what.
Cheeky.
Cheeky.
So what was the consensus?
We decided that it was Pokemon.
Well, I was thrown in the hot seat randomly.
Yeah, he was in the middle now. So
I chose Pokemon.
All right, my man. We're down to the last matchup of the night. Let's see if the internet holds up for another 5 to 10 minutes. But we have another banger, just like your counterpart in Xbox. The 1 and 2 seeds squaring off for the chance to be the Nintendo representative in the Final Four. So we have Breath of the Wild against Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
I mean, look, both
your two favorite franchises, yes?
Yeah, I love both Nintendo. Of these. These are both the things that made me like video games. Right? These are both franchises that are the reason why I'm here doing this today. And they both are extremely popular. They have a long history. Both Legend of Zelda and Pokemon have a history where they've grown and they've changed and they've adapted and everything. But I think with that being said, when we're breaking down all of these categories, right? The gameplay and the narrative and aesthetics and all of that, I think that in comparison between these two, Breath of the Wild hits all of these, right? It has, I mean, we can argue all the time about Breath of the Wild story. That's not what we're here to argue about, whether or not Breath of the Wild has a story and its narrative. But at least compared to Pokemon, Breath of the Wild's narrative is fucking it's miles better. Yeah, I think it has in breaking down all of these. Breath of the Wild is the more complete package when it comes to its visual style, comes to its impact, right? Its change, deviating from the formula, trying something new, having that be pretty successful, incredibly successful. They had so many ideas with this game. They had to make a whole new one because they just wanted to keep doing all these ideas, which made it sound like the developers had a lot of fun with this game. And that fun is present in the gameplay in both. We're not talking about Tears of the Kingdom, but we can see that they had so much fun with this. They needed more. They needed to do more with this. They wanted to play around in this world so much. And I think that's what happens when people play this game. They just want to play around in this world and be in this world. There's so much replayability in terms of different routes you can take, and the world is massive, and a lot of games have massive worlds with nothing in them, and you could argue that Breath of the Wild is one of those games as well. But taking its history into account, I feel like it is chock and packed full of history. And I think with that, Breath of the Wild is my vote.
Panel.
Yeah. You sold it.
Yeah, it has to be, because no matter what Pokemon game you go and get, it's not going to compete. Because, like I said, when you look at Legends Arceus, everybody compared it to Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
And they wanted it to be like Breath of the Wild. So,
Yeah.
Every time I play Arceus, I think of Zelda.
Yeah. And if that's happening, that is a hat tip to the Legend of Zelda, because
no, I totally agree. And being like one of the biggest Pokemon fans, I knew this stood no chance against Breath of the Wild. Let's be honest.
Like, in all honesty, like in that last round, like it really didn't matter which one we picked,
right?
Because we like at the start of this, everybody knew Zelda was going to win it.
Yeah. I did. I going into this, I was like, this is going to be Breath of the Wild. Like, that's what's going to happen. It was fun to debate some of the other ones on which one was better, but at the end of the day, I was like, there's no shot Breath of the Wild doesn't come out on top of this.
I mean, honestly, when we were building the bracket, I thought personally Sony would be the strongest, and I thought Nintendo and Xbox would be really competing to be, the weakest region. But when, we were doing the seeding and like looking up the ratings and stuff and just like compiling the lists of games, I'm like, there are some franchises with absolute bangers in Nintendo. Like, people are going to sleep on Nintendo, but Nintendo might win this whole thing. And then as I was building the Xbox, I mean, hey, I hope you want to win. But even building out the Xbox side of the bracket, like there are some absolute juggernauts in that division, like that are going to compete with the best of the best games that Sony and PC have to offer. So, honestly, we still have one more episode to go, by the way, that we need to do the Sony part of the bracket. So that will be coming out next week. It could really be anyone's tournament, guys. The final four is just out of this world right now. So make sure you tune in. So Sony will be coming out next week. So in 2 weeks, we will be having the final four and championship match. It's going to take place in one episode. And we are going, if you watch the March Madness from last year, these 2 rounds are just a head-to-head debate against the representatives, and that's where we'll have more of a judging, I don't know, role. I can think of the right word there. We'll be asking you questions. You guys will have like timed rounds.
This is going to be like a straight up
debate. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah, I'm here for it.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
I'm glad I'm not doing
it. No, this stuff is fun. I love doing this. I took like classes in college once or twice, and I always had like a fun time doing it.
Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you again so much for coming on, man.
Yes.
Guys, this was so much fun and also very stressful. So thanks for bringing me on. It was great.
Just wait.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was bad.
Yeah. Guys, make sure you go check out Play Along Podcast. We'll have their links in the episode description. Since time travel-y stuff will be happening, not sure what game they're talking about, but it'll probably be a great one.
Yeah, I mean, up next, again, don't know when this is coming out, but up next, we are going to be playing through a game called Norco. Norco is kind of a point-and-click kind of dystopian adventure game. Think of things similar to Kentucky Route Zero, Disco Elysium, which both games we covered on the podcast, very much in that line. Really interesting.
Kai pick?
This is a Ben pick, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
nice. Well, go check them out, guys. They're great, and they're also a fun follow on Twitter. So follow them over there. And we'll see you next week when we talk about Sony. Make sure you subscribe here, and we'll see you next time.
Peace
out.
let's all go play Pokemon Infinity.
Yes.
Out of the way.
No, you mean now y'all go play Pokemon Infinity while I go deal with crackheads and homeless people. I need the people to know that Memphis is dangerous.
Good luck.
How you doing, Kumino?
I'm great.
Oh, we got those. We got those. Just wake up, sultry tones. Hell yeah.
You sound just like Macho Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.